morning, everybody. I'm Evelyn Thoren. I'm your host this morning. This is the Dawn Patrol. Dawn Patrol goes from 6 to 7. City Life goes from 7 to 8. The City Life at 7 to 8 is televised in a lot more locations, but we do have Drake It out there this morning, and I think, is it Tewksbury and Tingsboro is also with us?
No one not on those, Lowell.
Oh, the only,
Still in bed.
yeah, Lowell.
Chelmsford's still in bed.
Yeah,
Lowell's
and
still
Chelmsford
in
comes
bed.
on at 7 a.m. live on the Thursday mornings. But as far as I'm aware, we're still televised on Sundays and Tuesdays. So you want to check your listing to find out. It depends on if you have a Verizon or if you have Comcast.
This thing,
It is on Chelmsford Telemedia.
you have to go to their website.
Yes, that's what they have to do. Anyway, so my co-hosts are Sam Chase and Bob Hoey. And we all get up special early. If you take a look, that's 6 a.m., not 6 p.m. It was a little chilly coming in this morning. It wasn't like we're not into the 60s or 70s anymore. But we are at my house it was 41. In my car it was 37. So a little wet out there this morning. There may be some dense fog in areas, so everybody needs to be careful about how they're driving. And be aware of it, but at least it's not slippery, as far as I'm aware.
No,
Today's the first day of spring, right?
yes, it is.
Yeah.
Yes, and what was interesting,
5:16
I gotta look
this
it up.
5:16 this morning, they said.
well, then, we all experienced
That's right.
the first moment of spring. But there are significant signs that have nothing to do with whether or not they tell you that the day is, and then you can find out scientifically as to why they say that. You can see certain types of indicators by nature that they know that there's something that is better coming along as far as our weather goes.
Well, spring can be the 21st, too, can't it? I mean, it's not always the 20th.
Well, they said
I think you're right.
that when I was growing up, it was always March 21st was the first day of spring.
Right.
June 21st was the first day of summer.
But I think it can vary depending on however, I don't know how they make that determination.
Well, I can look it up
Yeah.
in a minute. And then, so one of the things from childhood that always was out there as far as when spring was aware, because we always thought it was the 21st, but if it isn't, it isn't. The better the technology is, everything changes. But if you have any wetlands near where you are, everything is fairly quiet, and all of a sudden you hear, I'll put it in quotes, animal noises out in the swamp area or the wetland area, and those are frogs. We call them peepers. You can look it up. Peepers, and relative to spring, they'll explain the whole thing. And they started in my backyard probably, this is Thursday, Monday night. Tuesday morning, I could hear them, and I went, okay, spring's here. So I don't need to have a date. You can take a look because, centuries ago, people didn't have the calendars the way they have today, nor the technology, so they looked to nature for indicators as to seasonal changes,
can
weather
tell.
changes.
You can tell, the birds will tell you. What I like is the weather, the meteorologists, because they talk about meteorological spring, summer. So the weather people on the TV tell you that from a meteorological standpoint, they consider that spring starts March 1st. So spring is March, April, May. Summer is June, July, August. Fall is September, October, November, and winter is December, January, February. So they make
They've
that
divided into quarters.
They make that into they make that distinction. So I like that because I think, especially as far as summer is concerned, because I think most people think or feel that summer starts on Memorial Day, which is just right before the 1st of June.
Well, that's because, the reason they think that is because we usually wait.
Right.
When we had gardens, we would wait until Memorial Day to plant the tomatoes.
Well, around here, you should wait till about then to plant anything because you can still get frost into May.
Right, so I know that, Sam, you have some, like a brook or something or other behind you. Do you have anything behind you? Do you
I
hear
have
any of those
railroad.
peeper things?
I have trains behind me, very close.
We have River Meadow.
But do you hear those peepers?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
You know what I've heard, my friends in Borica, and it would happen in Chelmsford too. If you have a swimming pool, sometimes you can have some of those frogs close to your house. I think they're worse than listening to trains, to be honest with you. A lot of noise. They make a lot of noise.
When they're mating,
Oh,
the
it's
bullfrogs.
crazy.
Oh, it's ridiculous. They'll keep you awake.
That's what I'm saying.
That's how loud they are.
We have 4 trains a day, 5 trains, and when people are at my
You're
house.
used to that, though.
Yeah, when people are visiting and they see that train go by, they can't believe it.
How close are you to the train?
Pretty close, less than, I would say to my back fence, definitely less than 20 yards.
I had the same thing growing up.
Yeah,
The problem is, because we had the train going through our backyard, the problem was when I was a kid in the 50s, the Boston and Maine, they were still running steam locomotives.
yeah, they're very
And
noisy.
what
yeah.
a mess. And my mother would hang the clothes out on the line, and the train would come through, and the coal smoke, and it was, she was not happy.
I get
well.
excited for spring. It's girls softball, to be honest with you,
Yeah.
and I just hope we beat Chelmsford really bad.
Oh, here we
Oh,
go.
yeah.
I want to beat Chelmsford this year real bad. So.
Well, my granddaughter graduated, so she's in her freshman year in college, and so she's not playing softball anymore.
Okay,
That's
good.
Once you
That's
get
good.
there,
That
usually,
gives Lowell the edge.
gives us a
not
shot.
really, but I mean,
Victoria's
it's,
not playing, we're all set, okay.
You know, Bruce Rich used to coach even girls softball, wrestling,
Yep.
football, girls softball. He was, to me, amazing. We have George Bossy, obviously, and Bruce and George been going at it for years. But I just seen, I believe it's Bruce Rich's son, coaching out at Westford Academy. I don't know what he's,
I think
I
that's right.
seen that
Yeah.
I
in
think
the
you
news.
mentioned that in
I
one of
think
the
that's
other
right.
Did I?
episodes
Yeah,
we
I
did.
seen that.
Yeah. So anyway, there are other signs of spring because simply of the way, if you have bulbs like the daffodils and the grape hyacinths and crocus and hyacinths
I
and
think you see the crocus first,
and tulips
don't you?
and stuff. There are ones that come up first.
I've seen a
Usually it's a
couple.
crocus that will come up first. It's a tiny bulb.
There
Then
are
you have
some,
larger ones.
There are some at Town Hall, and I saw them yesterday, I think, when I was there. So,
Well, anyway, so there's different signs that are out there. You can't rely on robins anymore because bird migratory patterns have changed over the years.
oh, yes.
And so I see robins in the wintertime because a
Yeah.
lot of times we don't have snow. So there's a variety of things that you can take a look at. I did notice that the hawks are back where we are. There were 2 or 3 of them circling. It's like, eat those mice. And I haven't seen any rats in my neighborhood, just in case anybody wants to know.
I
Well,
haven't seen any rats in
Of
my
the,
neighborhood either.
yeah,
Right.
of the animal kind she's talking about.
Rats
not-
of the animal kind,
not the people
not
kind.
people. But anyway, and I think he's
It's not
talking
the
about.
animal kind, I don't see
yeah.
any rats.
So I haven't seen any of those. I've seen a variety of wildlife, but it's all interesting to say the least with regard to that.
We have skunks where I am.
I just want to hear one thing out of you this morning about the Department of Education. What are you thinking about that? I'd like to hear what you think about it.
Well, they want to get rid of the Department of Education. If they do that, then all of those buildings go away. That's a tremendous expense. I haven't seen a total amount of money with regard to that because you do have leases and you do have contracts, but usually they're not long-term. It's usually on a yearly basis. With regard to all of the finance aspect, and we can certainly ask Jay what
The
he
funding.
thinks. Yeah, the different, because there's all different kinds and different grants, and they go out to the different states. The Department of Education, and everybody has said it, and we've said it here, they're not developing curriculum. I don't know that they set any particular standard for anything. Each state does have the authority to do that, and some states are better at it than other states. Massachusetts, prior to COVID anyway, was very good at what they set as a standard, an educational standard for elementary and secondary education. So when we look at all of that, the only changes to the states from the Department of Education, from the things I've read, is money. Where does it go? we're going to get rid of it. All the programs are going away. I mean, you hear all of the fear-mongering with regard to that. But the point is they're going to take those funding mechanisms. If it's food, it goes to the Department of, which one is it? The USDA? Oh, agriculture, okay. So they've got different things that they're going to do. And if you have all the loans, that's going to the Treasury. So the money really is just being moved around, and maybe I'm oversimplifying.
No, you're not. No, you're not. And I'm going to, okay, broken record time. I say this all the
No,
time.
it's okay.
Do not listen to Fox. Do not listen to CNN. Do not listen to MSNBC. So what I did the other day was I listened to Linda McMahon, because she had a press conference, and she is the.
Where did you catch the press conference?
She Forbes News, okay?
Forbes
And
News?
No,
Forbes. They're like C-SPAN. They don't edit, they don't comment, they just show you the thing, and you make up your own
Sam,
mind.
respectfully stopping you right in your tracks there.
Yeah.
It's D-SPAN, not C-SPAN.
Okay, well,
It's
whatever.
the Democratic
Oh,
Independent.
cute.
So
D-SPAN.
Anyway, if you get your news from those places, it's going to be slanted and it's going to be biased, okay? So what I do is so when somebody gives a press conference, I prefer to watch the whole thing and I hear what they actually say.
I watch it on YouTube.
Okay, yeah, that's fine, but make sure you watch the whole thing, not a clip, okay? Because the clips are edited.
Well, this
So
morning,
according to
Good.
the
Sorry.
Secretary of Education, she basically said what Evelyn just said. She said, what we're trying to do is we're trying to get rid of the bureaucratic infrastructure, okay? She said the money that the states get for the programs will not go away. They will be administered and channeled by other agencies or other groups in the government. So if you think about what she said, it's consistent with what Trump has said. What Trump has said, we're going to turn the administration over to the states. So the intent is whatever money the states get, okay, will still be allocated to the states. What they're eliminating is the bureaucratic infrastructure of the Department of Education. And remember, the Department of Education did not exist before 1979. There was no Department of Education, okay? And there was still funding that went to the states for school programs. So Evelyn is right. There's a lot of fear-mongering out there because that's in the interests of the opposition to fear-monger. That's what they do, and that's what they're going to do. And the whole idea is to scare the hell out of everybody and get everybody mad at the administration. That's the whole idea.
And that scares me a little bit
Yep.
when it comes to
So-
the state. I'm wondering who's going to be like the main people in charge. Is it going to be DESE? Because we have a lot of problems with DESE. A lot of people have a lot of problems.
Every-
are they working? Are they in-house work, or are they still working from home?
I don't know.
I don't know that.
Your phone may know. They may be able to. Well, John, did you have something you wanted to ask?
Yeah. Education. How do we score around the world? Oh, we're the smartest. No, we're not. We're nowhere near the smartest. And we spend the most money. And so, well, we're going to move the money here. No. Educate the children excellently.
I can
And
answer
we're
that
not
question.
doing that. It's all about, well, I'm going to lose my job. I understand, because you didn't do your job. We're getting rid of you because I want the kids in the United States to be the smartest kids on earth. And if you can't make that happen, we have to find somebody who will.
I think America right
We
now,
don't concentrate on that on all levels.
John, I think America right now is ranked 40th in the world.
Well, out of 40.
Out of 40.
Yeah.
We're ranked last, but Chelmsford's ranked right up at the top, and they have about
My
40.
brother-in-law, my late brother-in-law, Jerry Wayne, come home from school today bragging to his mother, "Ma, I'm the smartest kid in the dumb row." That's Chelmsford. They're the smartest kids in the dumb row.
Well, I'm
When
not
it comes to
going,
world-class education.
I wouldn't agree with you, but would have to define some of these terms.
Well, in some cases, you're comparing apples to oranges.
Well, that's where I'm going to go,
Right.
which is
Thank
what
you,
I always
Sam.
So
did
what
during
number
debates.
what number would you settle for, Rev?
Well, I'd like to be number one, but but we're talking about the country. If you begin to talk about it per state in comparison, there's many times that if Massachusetts had been its own state, we would have been number one.
Yeah, right at the
Not in
top.
the, not, in the, not in the world. No way, shape, or form.
Well, you'd have to give me your data, and I would have to give you my data in order to prove our statements. You can take
That
and
ain't
say what you
happening.
want to say, and
That
I'll
ain't
take what I want to say. But prior to COVID, because of the way that with the MCAS and the focus on taking the test and all of the information and stuff, and before DEI and all of the different social programs that they incorporated that took away from education, of what it was that's in the other countries. Massachusetts was number one in the country, this country, and they were right up there with everybody else if you compared it, the apples to apples. Now, in comparing apples to apples, you've got to compare whatever the educational systems are and how they test. And Jay's coming in, and we'll ask him that question, to see if he has the
Hey,
answer.
listen, let's not argue about it. We're going to get the expert in here, and he'll tell us.
And he can talk about it.
But the one thing I will say
Excuse me.
is, when I said apples to apples, so you take a country like, I don't care.
Finland.
Take Finland, all right.
Sri Lanka.
In Massachusetts, and I'm not going to speak for the other states because I don't know what they do in the other states, but in Massachusetts, the idea is everybody is included in the public school classroom.
Yep.
That is not true in a country like Finland. Finland doesn't include its 766 equivalent population in the classroom. So if you've got people in the Finnish classroom, and they're all, for lack of a better term, college prep students, and you compare it to a Massachusetts school where half are college prep and, 20% are not, and then the 20% are below that, you're teaching to a different population. So some of these comparisons aren't valid because, you're talking about different socioeconomic groups and different levels of ability with your students. And the European countries, they cull those people out, okay? They don't include everybody in the classroom. So it's really, in my opinion, not a one-for-one. It's not a valid comparison.
But it isn't just, we have an educational system, at least in Massachusetts, where you do not have, in the lower levels, homogeneous grouping. And it's all mixed. So when my oldest son was in elementary school, you would have the kids that performed exceptionally with the kids that performed almost exceptionally in a class. And then you had the lower achieving students in a different classroom. So in a fourth grade,
But they don't do that now.
I understand. That's where I'm going
Right.
with this, is that say in a third grade, a first grade, whatever it might be,
Right.
a teacher would have the smarter students, we'll put that in quotes, and then another teacher would have the less performing students. And then they'd rotate it the next year, so that every teacher didn't always have it, unless they wanted it, as far as being able to educate students. We also had other programs when he was there, and when my youngest son was there, that benefited more of the students that you would say, lower performing, or if emotionally or physically they weren't the same age as the chronological age of some of the other kids. So I'm going to say that they had a readiness program. So readiness was between kindergarten and first grade. So instead of holding a kid back into kindergarten, they had a program
Okay,
that these
yeah,
kids would then be able to do that, then go into first grade.
I'm going to read this text, and then I'm going to ask you a question. Massachusetts' biggest grifter,
Oh, jeez.
Chief Fullerbowl, had a town hall in Lowell this week. It was actually yesterday. Cliff went. Her TDS, don't know what that is, has
Trump
gotten
derangement syndrome.
Oh, okay. Tourette's?
Trump derangement syndrome.
Oh, Trump's derangement. Has gotten worse since November. She needs professional help. Cliff, I'm sure I'll talk with Cliff on Friday about this, or tomorrow about this. 'Cause
So
he
apparently
went.
he listened.
And I watched a little bit of the recording this morning. And she got up on the stage instantly and turned into her scold. We don't, I'm going to talk about this, and all of us, Trump starts off, Trump's been in office for 3 months now. And they're like, wait a second, it's been a month. This is maybe 2 months, coming up on 2 months?
Yeah.
But not 3 months. And nobody corrected her, and she just went on.
How can
She
you get a
was
word
not-
in edgewise?
She wasn't nice at all. So you said on educational thing, there's some prep thing that the kids go through. Between kindergarten and.
No,
first-
it's not
Talking
prep.
about readiness.
No, it's readiness.
Okay,
It's
you
not
said
there
that-
anymore.
then you said they, I don't know who the they is, provide readiness program to.
That's the
children.
Chelmsford Public
So
Schools.
Tell me how that, so the Chelmsford
They
Public.
don't have it anymore. But I'm going to tell you, there was,
It's gone, then never mind.
right,
Drop
but
it. I don't wanna hear about
didn't.
it no more. It's gone.
Yes, but I didn't like the fact that they removed it. So I had a gripe about the
We can
fact.
ask Dr. Lang when he.
Yeah, that was a bad decision.
I think it was a very bad decision,
agree with
because
you.
what it did was it allowed students that may have gone to kindergarten sooner than they should have to catch up with the kids, so that when they went into the first grade, then they, or the second grade, they were at the same level, or they were better equipped to handle the next grade. In other words, you teach them, make sure they know how to read if they had an issue, or if they had an issue, then they can identify it if they're
It wasn't all,
dyslexic.
and it wasn't always academic. Sometimes it was emotional development.
Yes.
And my oldest daughter did readiness, and I can tell you, it made all the difference in the world. All the difference in the world.
And what Lowell had,
Yeah.
what you're talking about readiness, Lowell had,
Head Start.
yes, without a doubt, Head Start. It was all 4-year-olds that put them all together in 1 year.
Fantastic program.
It was
Same.
the best I ever seen in Lowell anyways, and they could all speak English a year later.
They don't
because you
have it
put them
now?
all together. No.
Oh.
They, what's the word I'm looking for? They diluted it. They started to put 3-year-olds and 2-year-olds and 1-year-old. They were just turned into a
Sam,
babysitting
can you read
place.
this one?
Do you want me to read it?
Yes.
I didn't
Oh.
hear him.
Out loud.
I didn't hear him.
Who cares about Ms. Warren? How about the load of bull fertilizer coming from Mayor Wu?
I think there's a lot of discussion on things that are going on in Massachusetts, because they have all of the Democratic talking points. And
Is Kraft running as a Republican or Democrat?
Is what?
Kraft.
Is he running as a Democrat or Republican?
Democrat.
Because the Boston media is 100% behind Wu. And
Of
I
course
would,
they
if I
are.
was Bob Cross, I'd just say, you know
course
what, we're
they
not
are.
going to put the Patriots on your channel.
Of course they are.
Yeah. And we're not going to do any parades in Boston.
And where does the management of the Boston Globe live? Do you know? Do they live in Boston? Or do they live out in the wealthy suburbs like Wellesley and Weston?
Sadly, they're living on a sinking ship, Sam.
I know, but they don't live in Boston, do they? No, they do not.
Sam,
Okay.
they're living on a sinking ship, and there's nothing they can do about it.
Good.
The Boston media
I would like
had
the Boston
live-
Globe to sink into oblivion.
Live last
Okay.
night, they had Wu on channels 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, live.
And what
Her-
BS was she talking about? Because she never answered
The state of
questions.
the city.
Oh, it's really good?
The state, I didn't listen.
Oh.
I watched, Channel 4 was the only one who was having regular broadcast. You know, if you're going to do it, put it on your website. Don't take away the regular television channels.
Well, the other thing that was, there was an article, and it had to do with all of the immigration stuff and how many cases there are. And the article made a comparison between Biden and Trump. And Biden had a whole lot more, of course, he had a lot more people coming across the border, but there was a lot more deportations under many of the Democratic presidents versus what is going on with Trump.
They
The
used to
point is, they
call,
brought that out yesterday. Biden got rid of 4 million, and Trump's only got rid of 1 million.
Yeah.
they used to call Obama, they used to
Excuse
call
me.
Obama the deporter-in-chief. That's
Yeah.
what they used to call him.
They're only using whatever serves their purpose. They're not giving the general public any kind of information that is accurate, on point, and substantiated. So.
Well, I'm happy we're gonna get the signatures looked into. I'm happy that they're gonna look into how mentally stable and healthy was President Biden the last 4 years of his
So not to
presidency.
change the subject, there was something that came up yesterday, and hopefully one of you guys heard more of it. It did make me kind of sit up and take notice. There was one of the cabinet secretaries was on talking about reports, energy reports, and there was a report. It was, I don't think the EPA did it, but there was a report. This is during Biden. The report that came out about natural gas did not serve the political platform of the Democratic Party in terms of green energy and in terms of climate control, so they changed it. And so that it didn't appear as though natural
What a
gas.
shock.
That natural gas was recommended to be used because it was the cleanest energy that was out there.
We've known that for years.
Well, I understand. So I know that too, especially like in my own house. You know, you have the technology has developed so that the burner and the way in which everything is functioning is that you're at like a 97, 98%
Much more efficient.
efficiency, and you can, see the steam going out, through the pipes and whatever, and you
When-
couldn't, it wasn't like that when I started, almost 50
You
years
know
ago.
how it is, people generally go with the lowest cost alternatives. So when I bought my first house in the early 70s, I'd just gotten out of the Army and time to buy a house. And the house was heated with oil. It was forced hot water with oil. And the burner was at the end of its life, so I had to make a decision. And at the time, gas was considerably more expensive than oil, okay? Because in the early 70s, it was regulated, okay? It was regulated, and the price was being held artificially low. But excuse me, it was. I'm saying that wrong. It had been regulated, and it had just been deregulated, so the price went up. So at that point, it was more than oil. I still made the decision to convert and go to gas, even though it was more expensive, because it was cleaner and more efficient, and I did not want to deal with the oil deliveries. So, of course, now, until recently, the gas has been less expensive than oil for the last 25 or 30 years anyway. But I'm not surprised to hear that they fudged the report, because a lot of that goes on.
Yeah, I was trying to find the report, but I'd have to do a little bit more digging with regard to that, and more specific questions to Google to find out more about it. But I heard them say that when they reviewed all of the reports, because now you have a different administration looking at the reports, they skewed it enough so that it appeared as though natural gas was our enemy versus our friend. And then Trump wants to put that gas pipeline into New England. And somebody in the Massachusetts, I don't think it was Healy, but somebody made one of those stupid comments like the reporter did when she was interviewing J.D. Vance and said, well, there's only a few apartment complexes that are taken over by terrorists or, whatever that gang is that was out in Colorado. Only a few, but the point is there shouldn't be any.
Well, her point, that was Martha Raddatz. Her point was, I wasn't affected. Okay? That was her point. I mean,
Yeah, well-
she would disagree if you called her on it, but the point is, these people, they live in their isolated bubbles, and they're not affected by any of this. So, hey, an apartment building out in Colorado that's overrun by a gang, we don't have to worry about that because, well, let me tell you something. If it was only one and it had been her apartment complex, she would be singing a different tune. Okay, we all know that. And I give you watch Vance, and of course, you hear all the rhetoric, and people hate him, and he's awful because he likes Trump, and I get it. But if you're trying to be objective about it, listen to the guy when he speaks. Again, go up on Forbes or some place where it isn't edited, okay, and listen to him answer questions. He is a very, very bright guy. Whether you hate his politics or not, he is a very bright guy, and he's extremely articulate. And, I think the administration sometimes would be better off letting J.D. Vance do the talking and tell President Trump, why don't you hand this over to Vance? Because you know how Trump is.
Well, he has to repeat the same stuff over and over.
Well, and
I don't like
I'll tell you, it's getting tiresome. I watched the press conference
it. I
yesterday.
want him to move on.
I watched the press conference yesterday. Caroline Levitt, she got up there, she's press secretary. If I hear one more time out of her mouth what a horrible President Biden was, I'm going to shut the thing off, okay? That does not, every single time she gets up to say that Trump did something good, we have to frame it with the last administration was horrible. Look, Dennis Reddy once told me, and I think he's right, the only thing worse than a sore loser is a sore winner, okay? And when they talk like that, Evelyn, that's how they come across, okay? And
We're looking
how-
at
I
it.
don't like
Aren't we
it.
looking at this more objectively?
I don't like it.
I don't like it either, Sam,
I
but
don't
I
like
do
it.
have to say this when I hear someone say that,
Yeah.
what you just said. Think of what they put Trump through for how many
I
years?
understand.
How many years?
I
It's going to
understand.
take a little while for Trump to get off Biden's back, and I hope he does, because
Yeah.
you're right, we don't need to
Thank
do
you.
that.
Thank you very
You're right.
much.
You're
I
right.
appreciate you saying that.
And
Yeah.
I don't particularly care to hear how many times he's lost and what he lost and all the other
I
stuff.
don't like it.
Because I got it the
Nope.
very first time.
Yep, we got it.
Right, but
We got it.
if you take a look
Yeah.
objectively, and you go back with every elected president,
Yeah.
they do make comparisons to the guy they either won from, or that the administration that preceded them. And sometimes they go back 2 or 3 presidencies.
It's enough
It's a
to say-
comparison.
It's enough to say, in contrast to the previous administration, we're doing this.
Yeah,
That's
mentioning
the way
names-
it should be done, but it shouldn't be, he was the worst president in history, and he was incompetent, and he was stupid, and come on.
Both, when you look at
this
both
is-
parties, though,
this is sixth
Democrats,
grade.
you look
Yeah.
at Democrats and Republicans,
Yeah.
both sides got major issues.
Oh, yeah.
The independents, unenrolled voters like myself, we're the ones that swung back and forth.
Right,
We
right.
went from Democrats
Right.
over to the Republicans. And I think that's what won the election, the unenrolled. Without a doubt, Democrats don't change too much, neither do the Republicans.
Well, you always have people that peg left, you always have people that peg right. Then you have the people in the middle. Sometimes you lean a little in one direction or the other, depending upon what your issues are. And regardless of whether it's politics, religion, or anything else, you always have those delineations.
And
The-
those are the people who have the brains, okay?
The ones in the middle?
The ones
They feel most pain,
the
I
ones
believe.
who can be reasonably objective, those people who always vote a straight party ticket without thinking, I don't think they're using their brains.
I think you're right.
Because they don't want to. All right? They don't
Well,
want
it
to.
depends on how they were brought up, and we could talk about the fact that once a Democrat, always a Democrat, the Republicans go in different directions.
And there are those people.
Right, but you also have
Well-
people who now are classified as unenrolled, that really are Democrats or Republicans.
That's the vast majority of
And they
people. Mm.
don't want to be labeled, and that's where I'm at. I don't want to be labeled in one party or the other, so that if I say something, somebody won't say, oh, she's just a Democrat, she's just a Republican. I mean, that's where I'm at. I want people to listen to what it is I have to say, and not try to negate my comments by a label
Okay,
and
so-
a predetermined opinion
All right, so I'm
about
gonna-
the label.
So I'm going to give you a challenge. So you give me, because you're basically a conservative person, you give me an instance where your opinion on, and I don't care what the issue is, pick an issue, where your opinion would be considered more liberal than conservative. Can you do that?
No.
All right.
However, that being stated, it depends on what you want to define as liberal. So we had certain issues,
Well,
forget
Sam,
how
would you
long ago
define
it was.
liberal, please? Define liberal.
Well, in today's political context,
Yeah, 2025.
I would confine liberal as, really, it's progressive. The term liberal is kind of fallen off.
Okay, you're still using foggy words.
All right. Progressive means your viewpoint, your political viewpoint is socialistic. You believe
You're
in...
still, now
He's
you're
going to
I'm
define,
going to tell you-
give him
no,
a chance.
I'm gonna
He's giving him a
define-
chance.
We're going down a road of
Do you know what a
a
socialist...
colloquial
Yeah,
road
but
we're
he's
going
going
down
to
here.
continue to define it.
A socialism is a recognized political term that has meaning, okay? So if you are a socialist and you believe in socialist values, what that means is you believe in a very strong, controlling, central authority, the government, okay? So a socialist believes that decisions ought to be made at the highest centralized government level and pushed down on people, okay? So in a socialist environment, an individual freedom means less than collective control. That's a socialist, okay? If you are right or non-progressive or so-called right-wing, you tend to believe that the individual freedom is more important than government control. So that's the difference, all right? So a progressive person, the really progressive people are really, they're socialists is what they are, because that's what they believe.
They're leading the pack,
Yeah.
I think, in the Democratic Party, though. I think like
Yeah, they're
AOC.
leading down the
I'm just
road
saying-
to oblivion.
Yeah, without a doubt. But if you look at like AOC right now, she's getting all the yink, and she's a progressive as far as I'm
Google
concerned.
says, what does socialist mean in simple terms? Socialist is an economic system in which industries are owned by workers rather than by private business.
That's the economic
Right,
definition.
and that doesn't mean,
But I'm going to take issue with that, because it says it is different from capitalism. Socialist systems are capitalist, because you can't have an economy without capital, okay? The difference is, in socialism, the capital is owned by the government or the people. In a free market society, capital is owned by individuals, okay? That's
Google's-
the difference.
Google's explanation of what
Yeah.
does it mean if you are a socialist? Socialist as an economic and political philosophy. Emphasis. What the hell is that word?
Encompassing.
Encompassing, thank you. Encompassing diverse economic and social systems characterized by social ownership. This is a bunch of gobbledygook.
No,
No.
that's accurate. That's an accurate description.
right, you have to understand all
Yeah.
of it, but the other part, which I will take issue with, it depends on how you have your workers own the company. Because, I'm trying to think of how many years ago this would be, 30, 35 years ago. There was an entrepreneur, a business person called Tom Peters. And he believed that you needed to have the workers have ownership in the company of some sort, because that way they took more pride in their work, they worked harder, because then they benefited by the sharing of the profit
fruits-
margin
fruits of
at
their
the end.
labor.
And so it's a different, yes, it may be socialistic, but it isn't socialism.
But the problem is, and that definition that he showed, that is technically correct, but in practical terms, in actuality, when you look at the systems that are in place in the world, really, you say socialism from an economic standpoint means the workers own the means of production or the company or whatever it is. But that doesn't exist.
No.
Because in reality, the government does. The government explains it by saying, well, we are the people. But they're not, because the government has legal authority and control over the activities of people, okay? So socialism, the pure meaning, yes, it's a collectivism, okay? But in practice, the way governments do it throughout the world, it's government control and government coercion. That's what it is, okay? And you know, all you have to do is read your history. I mean, don't believe me. Chase, you're full of baloney. Okay, fine. Go off and do your own research. Read your history and understand, you know, read a history of the Soviet Union, okay, and read the history of the People's Republic of China, and you will find out what socialism is. And it's government control. That's what it is.
Because it's not owned by the people, because you still have bureaucracy, you still
Right.
have hierarchy,
And in
and,
this-
you-
and-
and you have
right.
somebody in charge, and they're making a lot more money than the people that
Well,
are
that's-
working.
That's the point.
So,
In the socialist systems.
not
that I've-
equal.
It isn't. In the socialist systems that I've just described, the people who run things are the wealthy people. They have the cars, they have the fancy houses, and the people have nothing, okay? That's the way it works.
Sam, could you, I don't know who KJP is. Maybe
Kareem, the previous public relations person of the White House, she was Biden's spokesperson.
Oh, okay. So
Yeah.
I got 3 texts, if you could
Right.
read them, please.
Grand Slam Sam, after hearing KJP for years bloviate, I thought it was going to be different, but she's pretty sometimes. Well, I think Caroline Levitt, I think she's very good, and she's obviously very, very smart, but she's reading the script, and I wish the people feeding her would just tone it down a little bit on the, you know, Bob and you and I agree on that.
I think Fox is just as bad right now. They just can't.
No, they are.
They can't get off it. you know?
Fox is
Moving
terrible.
right along on the next text, Sam, please.
Can we forget about the Biden presidency? Yes. Thank you. I am pretty sure Joe already has.
I think that was the point.
Well, I think he forgot about it
And the
2
last-
years in.
And the last one of this,
The Boston media are now glorifying the destruction of Teslas, yes, after years of them telling us how bad gas vehicles are. Turn off the news. Thank you.
well, quite bluntly.
These
the
people are
media-
making my point, John. They're making my
The
point.
media never liked Tesla because Tesla doesn't buy ads,
Tesla doesn't what?
doesn't buy television ads.
Oh, they don't? Oh, you're right. I don't think I've ever seen one.
And I don't think you ever will.
Well, that means they don't need to advertise. They must be doing well enough, right?
It's the #1 electric car in the world.
Yeah.
And it will get better. And what they're trying to tout is some new Chinese type of car. And why do we want to subsidize a communist country by buying their products? So there's a whole lot of interesting stuff like that. I know that, you know, we're not on in Chelmsford currently live. We will be on, I'm assuming, the 2 hours.
Dr. Lang is coming in at 7?
Yes.
Okay. Oh, I
He
see
may be
it,
here
yeah.
a few minutes early, but, I mean, he is coming in. But you did, I don't think we can talk about this, but in the next hour, because we want to focus on what he has to say. And you just ask a question and Jay just
Oh,
answers
yeah,
all
and-
kinds of
and
stuff.
that's
So
what-
it's easy.
That's what you want.
Oh, absolutely. But, Sam, you have a show, it's also on YouTube, and it's Chasing the Facts, and you have been interviewing the candidates in Chelmsford for the different positions.
Yeah.
Even if they're not contested.
Well, we
So-
only had one race where it wasn't contested.
Hey, Sam,
Yeah,
do they edit your show at all?
no.
So would you consider asking them to put it out to Facebook Live while you're taping?
Say
Just
that again?
Put it on Facebook Live
Yeah, okay.
as you're taping.
All right.
And it will tell you how many viewers you have.
I can ask them to do that. I don't know. What
If they will.
Well, I don't know what they're capable, I'm sure they can do it. If John can do it, I'm sure
Well,
telemedia can do it.
The thing is that it's the only place we can really get numbers. Like, we'll get 500 people watch this show today or 200 people, I don't know. Bobby follows the numbers.
I'll ask Pete
Pretty-
whether,
Evelyn usually gets about 600 and above right now.
So everyone
I'll
gets
ask.
600 views.
I'll ask.
And YouTube gets 38. Same show.
No, his show on YouTube,
No, I'm telling you about City Life.
This is your show.
600 people will watch this show today on Facebook. On Facebook.
Okay, I'll.
Where 38 tops will watch it on YouTube.
well, you know what's interesting? I have a
ask.
friend of mine that from college, and when I was there last week, because Glenn was on last week, and she said something about seeing it. I said, well, you can watch it on YouTube. And so she has the app, she has everything, and I don't know if she has or hasn't, but she hasn't told me if she was watching it, and she lives on the South Shore, so it's not like it's
Well,
up
that's
here.
it. I mean, people can watch it all over the world.
Right, and so maybe what I'll do is I'll see if my friend in Alabama would be able to watch it.
I have,
Yeah, like this show right here, when we go to City Life, you have ltc.org, real simple, Channel 8. That's all I say to a lot of my friends. They could be anywhere. In Florida, could be anywhere, and they can watch this show right on their
Oh,
phone.
yeah. And they
So,
could, yeah,
that's
because you-
one number, though,
yeah.
we don't know.
in some
We
cases.
don't know how many
No, you
people
don't.
are watching
You
the
don't.
TV.
In some cases, I find that the YouTube transmission is a higher quality.
It is.
And.
But
so-
it doesn't have the viewership Facebook
No,
does.
you probably don't. Now, my viewership, and I don't really pay much attention to it, the Vilu gives me the numbers sometimes, but when I do the candidate interviews, the numbers go way up. Okay, so I might do a half-hour show with a guest, and after a month, you look at it, and it's got 300 views on YouTube, right? But if you look at the candidate interviews, it's like 600, 700, 800. All right, so those are more popular on YouTube, okay? And my normal show format is a half hour. So when I do these candidate things, we expand the show to an hour, and I do a round table. And, I have questions that I ask, but it's more to keep the discussion in line. It's more of a discussion, and what I do is I encourage the candidates to talk among themselves, answer a question, somebody else will follow it up. And people seem to like that format, so.
This is the first week of March. And on Monday, March 3rd, 373 people watched the show on Facebook. 28 watched it on YouTube. Tuesday, 686 people watched it on Facebook. 37 watched it on YouTube. So you can see that it's just on Wednesday, 499 views on Facebook, 30 on YouTube. And
Can I
then
interrupt
doing-
you?
No, I'm going to keep.
All right, go ahead.
I got to finish off.
All right.
I'm going to finish off the week, then you can talk all you want. Here we are, Thursday. Evelyn got 638 views, 20 people on YouTube. So Facebook, and then on Friday, Cliff got 558 views, 21 views on.
Now, let me ask you a question,
YouTube.
because I'm not a Facebook expert. So when you say views, you don't know if the people watch the whole show?
Nobody watched the whole show.
Okay, so if they click on for 2 seconds, that counts as a
Yes.
view? All right.
Yeah, because it registers.
Okay, I
Or
got it.
there may be a different threshold. You have to be
Yeah.
on for more than a second, you know what I'm
And
saying?
you don't think they changed the channel that quick, Sam? They got
No,
the remote
I'm-
in their
I'm
hand.
just asking a question, because I didn't know how it worked. So if you watch the whole thing, it counts as a view. If you watch half, it counts as a view.
Yeah.
If you click on it for 1 second, it counts as a view.
And one of
Okay,
the things
I
we're
got
not measuring is how many people in Chelmsford watch it on Sunday and Tuesdays.
Well, I know
Don't know.
you think. I know that you think that the sun rises and sets over Chelmsford.
Well, not necessarily,
does.
I'm a little bit,
But
well, yeah,
Chelmsford
literally.
is so interested in airing what we have to say. They only put an hour on when they feel like it.
It doesn't matter, I'm not going to debate whatever that is, I'm only
So,
making a comment,
the
is
only
that
thing- the only
it's
thing-
an observation.
You have
And a
good-
statement of fact, by the way.
You have a very good following. And I'm just saying to Sam, it will help increase his viewership if you just ask the people at
I will-
Chelmsford Telemedia.
I will do that.
Can you put this, as we're doing it, can you put it out live on Facebook?
I'll ask.
And then you ask you for, share it during the show. And, if you have 500, 5,000 people watch the show, you're going like, wow. But they only watch for a second. You're going, I don't care. 5,000 people watched my show.
They tapped into it, which is kind of interesting. So,
I'm not into that stuff.
on the education, because we're going to focus on education. So we do have in Chelmsford, we do have a race. We have 3 people for 2 positions.
School committee, right.
On school committee. When you did your interviews, what kind of questions did you ask, and how was the response, generally, because we're going to run out of time?
Well, first I asked them for an opening statement, and I didn't limit it, just introduce yourself, tell people who you are, give them your background, that kind of thing, so they did that. And then the general questions, why are you running? That's always the right question to ask a candidate. Then how do you feel about the current state of education in Chelmsford? What do you think the priorities of the school department ought to be? How do you rate Dr. Lang's performance? I always ask that question, and of selectman candidates, same thing. How do you rate the town manager's performance? And please be specific. So they answer that way. What do you think the priorities, if you're not in alignment with the current priorities, what do you think the priorities should be and why? So I ask questions like that. And very often, and they're sort of open-ended, because what I want them to do is I want each person to answer, and then if there's some disagreement or conflict, then I want them to talk about it. And they usually do. You don't have to prompt them. I mean, they naturally will say, well, you said this, but blah, 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 blah. And that's what you want. You want
Well, you
that-
want it like
you-
almost a debate.
I like it to be sort of like a hybrid debate conversation. That's how I try to do it. And generally it works out pretty well that way. So
Did you have any surprises with any of the answers or give and take?
well, one of the candidates, and it's Doreen Deschler, who is the challenger. So we've got two incumbents that have been on the school committee for quite a while, Maria Santos and John Moses, and then Doreen Deschler's challenging them. So one of her statements was that she wants to make sure that there's no critical race theory being taught in the schools. And she was pretty adamant about that. So when she got through with that, I said, well, let's find out. We got two people here on the school committee, and they'll know the answer to that question. And I said, is critical race theory being taught in the schools? And they said, no, it's not. And both Maria and John went through a fairly lengthy explanation of why it wouldn't be taught in the schools, okay? And so I thought to myself, well, that's one of her platform planks that's now null and void, because she's talking about CRT in the schools, and we don't have CRT in the schools.
Well,
So-
according to the school committee, you don't, but you don't know how the topic has influenced any direction.
that's a different-
That an individual teacher may be approaching a subject, whether it's through the dissemination of information or through the assignment
There
of
is,
projects.
the question is there a curriculum?
know.
And the answer is no.
No,
And
it's
you're
built
right.
in, and
We
that's why
have-
they can, and most school systems can answer
And
the
how many
question that way.
teachers do we have in a school system? And they all inject, to some degree, their personal belief and value system in any subject, okay? If you go into the fifth grade classroom, and there's 3 fifth grades in a school, and 3 fifth grade teachers, they're not all teaching the same way. There's a little bit of different flavor from one teacher to the next, and that's called human nature. You're never going to stop that. And I don't think you'd want to stop it. My wife didn't teach the same way as her colleagues, and she would introduce the subjects a little bit differently, with a little bit different flavor, with maybe a little bit more information. They all do that. That's what a good teacher does, okay? So that's very, very difficult to control. The other thing she was very insistent on is that they teach cursive writing. And she said if you don't have cursive writing, you won't be able to read certain documents and so forth.
Well, that isn't the only reason.
Right, but that's one of her things. So now I don't, I'm just going by my grandchildren's experience. They're in the elementary school, and they do have cursive writing. It's not taught the way it was taught when I was in school. They don't sit there and drill you for hours in it, okay, but it's more like, they do introduce it, and they do talk about it, and they do some practice work. So it's not emphasized the way it was 60 years ago, but it's not ignored either. They do talk about the cursive writing. So that was she was very adamant on cursive writing.
So there was a school committee meeting this week in Lowell? Bob, are
I
you
don't
following
know.
those things?
No, I don't follow the school
They do-
committee as much as I do the city council.
Do they teach cursive writing in Lowell? I don't know.
I don't believe so. But
was some
I
article I
haven't been there
read.
for a while.
Yeah.
Probably my number one issue, there's no doubt about it, will be about special education, but we'll be making sure we got them reading before they leave the third grade.
I hope so.
And I think that solves a lot of your discipline problems, which is number
Absolutely.
one in our system. Number one issue with teachers, to me, is always discipline of children. And I know I was that type of child, I couldn't read. I faked my way all the way to my junior year in high school.
Well, that just tells me how smart you are.
Well, I got through. I almost made it until I run into Mrs.
Bob,
Keeley.
you would not,
Yeah.
without a good functional brain,
Yeah.
you would not have been able to do that. Only
Yeah.
a smart person could do that.
I've been sitting here saying, what are you going to ask
Yeah.
Jay Ling? But, because it's all about how much
Well,
money
here
we're
he
going
is.
to have. But
He's coming in now.
the
This is
seven,
good, he's right on time.
Yeah,
So
it's good.
I'll get out of the way. He can sit.
No, not yet, we'll go to break, because we're almost at the 7 o'clock
I'm
mark.
gonna read some text of.
Oh, okay, we'll read
More
text.
texts.
Which is good, I'm glad that people are out there listening.
Read them out loud.
If you want to be interested in local news and honesty, City Life is the best. All shows.
Who's
Of
Jay?
course you wanted,
Jay's a follower. He watches it all the time.
of course you want to
Okay.
do that. Imagine if Bernie Sanders was president, we'd all be screwed.
We wouldn't have any money.
Yeah, somebody else would have it. Why did we buy subway cars from a South Korean company? Probably because they make them better.
They didn't fit on the tracks.
That's a problem.
Massachusetts bought them?
Yes.
Okay. How about if we can see the baked goodies? That's always a ratings booster. Buster.
Buster.
That's the last one.
Okay. So we're coming up to that 7 o'clock mark. We hope that people will stay with us.
Today is the first
3
day of
minutes to go,
spring.
kid.
And we got 3 minutes.
Yeah.
It's still a little rainy
Well,
out
let me
there.
ask you guys this. Anybody watch the Selectmen program last night? They had the Selectmen at the police station.
Oh, the debate. No. I was going to go, but I'm exhausted because I'm trying to move my
You didn't
mother.
watch it on TV either?
No, I went
How
to
about
bed
you,
early.
Sam?
No, because I'd already interviewed them. I didn't need to watch it. Plus, it's an uncontested race. They're all going to get in. They're all going to get in.
Nobody's running? Are you people still paying zero out there?
Yeah. And it's not
You
going
get
to
what you
change.
pay for.
It's
You
not
know-
going to change soon.
Most towns around us, if you focus on Lowell this year, you'll get a lesson on how to go out and vote. Because Belvedere, we picked 3 citywide candidates for city council, okay? In Belvedere, where I live, it's called District 3, they'll pick all 3. The rest of the city will not even help that issue. You can bet the citywide city councilors will all come out of a Belvedere vote. That's how popular that place is going to be this year.
So the
because-
Belvedere people vote. is
well,
what you're
and they
saying.
have 4 people
Yeah.
coming out for that district already. 4 of them. I mean, you could win by 10 votes if you don't watch out. You better work hard. All 4 are capable of getting a lot of votes.
So
Well,
Bobby,
that'd be
read this
interesting.
one, please, then we're gonna go to break.
You're up, Bob.
Great show, quality on YouTube. Subscribe to the channel, hit the notification bell, and don't forget to smash that like button. Any homemade baked cookies?
They're coming up
Goodies.
with a
Yeah, I do have
Bob.
some, and it will be in the next hour.
They're
Something
coming-
different that I tried to work on. Anyway, we're going to go to break. When we come back, we'll have Dr. Lang from Chelmsford. He's our superintendent of schools, and we're going to look forward to finding out maybe something
We'll be
new.
right
You
back.
never know.
Thanks.
Welcome back to City Life. I'm Evelyn Thoren. I am your host for the next 57 minutes, maybe. We have our guest with us this morning. Good morning.
Good morning.
Jay.
How is everyone?
Thank you very much for coming in to share
Happy
with
to be here.
everybody what's going on in Chelmsford Public Schools. My co-host Sam Chase and Bob Hoey, thanks for getting up extra special early. We know also that they need to leave at 7:30. That leaves
Oh,
you and
okay.
me, which is okay because
Thanks for the warning.
we have we have plenty to talk about always.
Right.
So we're never lacking for conversation, that's for sure. You recently had a budget presentation for the Chelmsford Public Schools. Did you get any pushback on that? How did that go? You had comments from the school committee? Anything new that you're doing or things that you're going to get rid of or decrease?
Yeah, this is I think the last time I was on, it was just before the holidays, and we had started our very initial planning on the budget for next year. Our budgeting process in Chelmsford begins actually kind of right after Halloween, so end of October, early November is when we start our internal meetings with our different schools and departments to craft the budget for the following year. Tri-Board in Chelmsford, which is the Finance Committee, the Select Board, and the School Committee, typically meet in early December and just talk about revenue and expense targets for the following year. At that point, we knew the budget was going to be very tight going into fiscal '26, which begins on July 1st. In the school department, kind of a level service budget for us was going to be approximately a $3.5 million increase for next year. The town, which is very supportive of the schools, the town has been very good in my 10 years in Chelmsford of supporting the school budget and our requests. But the requests on both the town side and the school side really just exceeded what the revenue projections for next year were going to be. So we were able to work with the town manager on both the school budget and the town budget. Approximately $1.8 million of additional funds was allocated through additional revenue sources for next year from the town. The school committee was able to utilize some additional special education circuit breaker funding, which we receive as a reimbursement for some of our high-cost students in special education placements and transportation of about $1 million. And then that gave us a delta of about $700,000 that we had to work with within the budget to make some reductions. So we did have to reduce a number of our kind of interventionist or tutoring positions, their extra support positions in the district. Fortunately, several of them had been unfilled. So we had budgeted for them, but we just have not still been able to attract and fill all of those positions post-COVID. We're still having a very difficult time with that. So we were able to reduce, I believe, approximately $250,000 from that account. It really won't impact bodies, which is good, because you also have to worry about when you're making budget reductions, the offset in unemployment costs. So if you're actually eliminating a position that has a person in it, there's additional costs associated with it. It's not just a clear savings. So we had that. We had to go through really kind of page by page through the budget and find little areas where we could make some reductions. We had a few positions in the district that we had to add for next year to be in line compliance-wise with special education programming. So in the past, we've been able to just add those and not really affect other programming in the district. This year, we had to do some trade-offs. So if we had a retirement in a particular department and we needed to add a teacher in another department, we had to reduce in one to add in the other. So basically, it was net neutral as far as overall actual bodies to the district that are going to be reduced for next year. But overall, approximately, I would say 6 or 7, technical FTEs were reduced from the budget. But we were able to meet the town manager's recommendation, which is going to go forward to town meeting at the end of April. I still think it puts us in solid footing for next year. We're able to continue the momentum with our priorities that have been identified in our strategic plan around academics and performance and things along those lines, facilities and improvements we're trying to make there. So I'm very happy with the budget. As you know, I make a budget recommendation to the school committee the first meeting in February. And then after February break, we actually go page by page through the budget. The committee members ask questions. Ultimately, they have to approve each line item within the budget. They have line item autonomy. So they go through the budget, again, ask very good questions. We did that all in one night. And ultimately, they supported the bottom line recommendation that I had made, which does match with Town Manager Cohen's recommendation. So we'll actually now be going to the Finance Committee for our presentation, I believe, a week from today, actually.
A week from today,
And then,
right.
is that correct? Yep. And then the last bit of April, we'll have town meeting where it'll be finalized.
I find it fascinating because when I was on the school committee, I do not recall voting on the budget on a line item basis. We were allowed any questions, obviously, of anything that we wanted, and I don't remember the budget in detail being presented. That was way before you.
Right.
And
I think you're, that's how I remember.
because you were on the FinCom.
Yeah.
In different years with regard to that. After we had, I was trying to think, after we had an issue with the audit and all of the things as a result of finding bills being mispaid, we'll put it that way, and then we hired you, the budget changed in terms of its presentation, its direction, the inclusivity of having school committee members being involved far
Oh, I
more
think
greatly.
it's a tremendous improvement. The other thing that changed that I thought was great, should have always been done, is they segmented the budget, they segmented the vote in town meeting, because before, we used to vote the town and the school budget as one
Oh, really?
thing, yeah.
I didn't know it was
And, no, and it never should have been that way, in my opinion. I always felt that was wrong, but then I think, as Evelyn said, I think it was as a result of that difficulty, and then we brought you in, the decision was made, let's separate that vote, and so that we have a better focus discussion at town meeting, much better.
Right. I see.
Yeah.
I didn't realize there was a difference, but
Oh, yeah.
we separated, I guess, the three votes because there's a vote on the overall town budget, there's a vote on the Chelmsford Public Schools budget, and then there's a vote on the Neshoba Tech.
Correct. That's right.
Budget as well.
Yeah.
So all three of those, excuse me, will go forward to town meeting in April.
Yeah, and with regard to all of the money and things, when we had the issue with those bills, and the audit came in, and then we spent money on having a whole document made, then one of the things that they had, which I had talked to you about this years ago, is that they recommended that there was a policy booklet or manual for every one of the departments, including the business department, and at the time, the business manager was working on it. Do you have those documents?
Yeah, we do. So, and I recall most school systems do have that. At the time I was brought on, the district had been undergoing quite a number of kind of reviews and audits and things along those lines. But one of the recommendations, certainly was to have current kind of procedure manuals and operating manuals that very clearly lay out the process, say around accounts payable, if that was an issue, of how to actually perform your procurement to make sure you're in line with Chapter 30B, which is the procurement laws in Massachusetts. You actually issue a purchase order for your goods when the goods are delivered or the services are received. Whoever is receiving them is actually signing off, attesting to the fact that the services were performed or the goods were received. The business office official then, can queue up the invoice for the warrant. It gets placed on a warrant. I know it's different now as well, is the school committee members themselves individually. We have a quorum will come in and sign off on the warrant so that school committee members can review the individual invoices. Joanna Johnson-Collins, who does a wonderful job, who's our Director of Business and Finance, is in charge of the business office and overseeing those individuals, but has very prescribed, procedure manuals and ways that they go about ensuring, the funds are appropriated properly, they're accounted for, expenses are made timely, and everything is ultimately reported back to the school committee.
One of the bad habits I think Lowell had is we didn't call them warrants, it was permission to enter. They'd pass them out during the school committee meeting, that's on TV for you to read and sign. I used to just pass
During the
them on.
meeting?
Yeah.
Oh, come on.
I used to go down the next day.
Really?
So I could read through them, didn't sign it. I just pass it to the next
Oh,
person.
they did that for
but-
the convenience of the school
Yeah.
committee members.
but
We
today-
never did that.
Today
Well,
I'm saying,
did we?
Jay Lang's on the show, what are you gonna ask him, you know? But I have flashbacks when I see him. I'd like to know what Dunkin' Donuts he's at now, because when I got caught behind him a few times and he pays back. He pays your bill. It's a nice feeling when you go up to pay
I'm
and
at
they
the
say.
same Dunkin' Donuts.
No,
I haven't changed.
That's okay.
I'm a
And,
creature of
and I
habit.
do remember me and you crossing paths in front of Cobblestones when you were
Mm-hmm.
going for your final interview, and I wished you a lot of luck because I was running at that time. I wasn't on the
Right.
school committee, but I had 7 years on the school committee, 4 different mayors and 4 different superintendents
In 7 years.
in 7 years. And Chelmsford, you said you'd been there, how long, 10 years now?
Yeah, this is my 10th year.
Okay, and I want to say this, to
incredible.
me, I've never met, and I've met a few superintendents, never met one that knows the numbers and the budgets any better than you, buddy. You're
I
the
appreciate
best.
that, thank you.
I don't know if you're still in, I know you helped Joe Boyd and other superintendents. Are you still in a position that if they wanted to call you, they could call you and ask you for an opinion?
Oh, yeah. I mean, the superintendent group in general, particularly like we have a Merrimack Valley Superintendent's Association, we get together and support each other. I obviously have and came to the position with more of a finance and operations background. So different superintendents, if they are having budget challenges or they need to understand, how the Chapter 70 formula is affecting their allocation or what set-asides might be there based on like a circuit breaker reimbursement, or in particular the last few years when we were getting ESSER funding and things like that from the government, like how you can and can't use funds. I like to be a resource and help superintendents in those areas. And there's other superintendents that have a background, around something that I didn't do. They might be more of a curriculum-focused individual or someone who came from more of a special education background, and I can reach out and ask them questions as well. So, no, we definitely support each other and make sure everyone is, on the same page. And again, it doesn't benefit any of us if people are just kind of holding information and aren't sharing it. So I think you would find the superintendent group, particularly in the Merrimack Valley, is a very tight-knit group.
That's really good to hear. That's encouraging.
Bob, did you have any follow-ups
No,
to that?
I would just say that's one of the reasons why I'm running for school committee in Lowell again, citywide, is because we just got rid of too many superintendents without giving them a chance. And this one that we have right now, to me, is the person that we need to address one of our biggest issues, and it's discipline in a classroom. Liam Skinner's about the best that I've met in my lifetime. I'm glad to have him, and I'm going to promote him.
Yeah.
I'm a vote for him. I'll basically say it right out like that so we don't get rid of him. We need discipline to be fixed, and when he had the daily school, I never seen a more respectful student body in my life.
Yeah.
When he
No,
was the
Liam's a
principal.
good colleague now, and he was the principal of the Daily when I worked in Lowell, but he was always very, very good to work with.
So with the Superintendent's Association, I know what the school committee one does with all of the different types of topics. So you guys get together, you share whatever, like maybe there's a crisis in one school, do you try to troubleshoot to try to help each other out if there's an issue there, or if you have solutions in your school system? Do you also do that? Like a
Yeah.
networking type of situation?
There's a lot of different kind of networking opportunities. The group you're referring to, which probably most closely aligns with the School Committee Association, is the Massachusetts Association of School Superintendents. That's a statewide organization, and there are different factions. You'd love this. There's like a policy group, and there's
she'd love that.
Yeah, she'd love that one. There's like a legislative committee, PD committee, things like that. So people are very active in that particular statewide organization. I happen to serve as the representative from the Merrimack Valley Superintendents, which was the group I was talking about a minute ago. That's probably 30 or so of the kind of greater Merrimack Valley districts. I'm the representative on what they call the executive committee to that particular group. So you get to see the inside of kind of what's happening in different school districts. Again, I think statewide kind of troubleshoot issues. We certainly do follow a lot of legislation that's taking place, more advocacy type work that we do for statewide initiatives, but that affect regions of the state. There's a big push going on kind of in the western part of the state around rural school funding and rural aid. We have regional schools that are facing different challenges than local cities and towns with regard to Chapter 70 allocations, because when you have a regional school system, you have 2, 3, 4 communities that each have an allocation that they have to pay. Sometimes you run into situations where 1 or 2 can pay it, another 1 or 2 can't pay it. So that's a very complicated system. And then obviously the vocational tech world, like Greater Lowell Tech, Greater Lawrence, Neshoba Tech, Whittier, who's on our group as well. That's a whole other level of sophistication when it comes to budgeting, because those school systems, and I've never had to do this, have to worry about the revenue and the expenses. In most school systems like, say, Chelmsford or Lowell, we're not worried about revenue. The revenue is coming into the city or the town side. School systems are only responsible for really the expenditure and then the accurate reporting of those funds. But when you work in a regional school system or you work in a voc tech school system, they also basically operate their own little auditing office and business office, because they have revenue coming directly to them and then expenses going out the door. So it's completely different. I enjoy the statewide work that I do quite a bit, but I very much enjoy that Merrimack Valley group. I think it's, again, just kind of regionally, we're more in line with what's actually happening within our communities, and again, try to support each other, because ultimately, we want to make education the very best it can be in our area.
All right, and I think because of Paul Cohen and you getting along like you do, I think that's why Chelmsford's where it's at. That's just my opinion.
Yeah, I mean, I
You
think
two get along.
relationships just in general between, whoever the school administration is and whoever the city or town administration is critical. You have to keep each other on the same page with regard to kind of what's happening in your organizations. Again, I've had the luxury of having Paul be the town manager for 10 years. I've been out there for 10, Paul's been there for 10. And Paul has a very good kind of financial mind as well. So at the time I came on, obviously there were some financial issues happening in the school system. We were able to work closely together to kind of get on the same page and figure out exactly what was happening. I remember that first year that I was there early on, we actually identified another deficiency that hadn't even been identified in the budget. We had to go back to town meeting that fall to get some additional funding allocated. But I truly felt like it was a partnership at the time. And we have maintained that relationship, to date. There are certainly things I'm sure that I do that maybe he doesn't necessarily agree with, or vice versa, or might just have a different opinion on. But I think from the very get-go, I've always respected him and the job that he's done as town manager. I think he respects me and the job that I do managing the schools. And I think that is integral to the relationship piece for the community, because the community doesn't need to have dysfunction beyond what probably already is in the community. It's nice to have everyone on the same page, rowing in the same direction.
Well, you're right, and I agree with everything you said, because it projects. I mean, when people watch and pay attention, that's the impression they get, that you're working together. But I also think your leadership style and Manager Cohen's leadership style, I think that cascades down into the respective organizations, so that the people who work for you, who have to also work with people in the town, that seems to be a good relationship.
It is.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, and again, I think it's just a matter of, well, again, same that you say that. I mean, obviously, people will see me and Paul getting along and working together.
Right.
And I think that does send a message that we're going to get along. And
Exactly.
There's no reason not to. But I think the people in our central office that probably work most closely would be Joanna, our business administrator, with John Souza and Darlene, the town finance director and accountant, and obviously Paul and I, just to make sure that everything is kind of functioning. But it's been good. Honestly, it's been a good relationship all around, and I do think the community ultimately benefits when those factions are working together as opposed to apart.
I remember a few years back when Evelyn got you in here and you talked about 26. When that year comes, we're going to be in a bit of financial crisis. I just know, I got a feeling you're right, again. And you said this a couple of years ago in front of me, that 25 and 26, we might have to tighten the budgets down. And it looks like it's coming from the federal government down toward us, that you better watch your budgets, that's for sure.
I have 2 texts here, could you read them, please?
Yeah.
Are you required to have DEI programs and training?
No district in the state is required to do that.
Do you do it?
We have, I mean, we don't necessarily call it DEI programs and training. Our staff certainly do provide, equitable educational opportunities for all of our students. We're very inclusive in Chelmsford, and again, I think people can get caught up in different words, but when I see like inclusive, like we've spent
In
a
the
sig-
spirit of DEI programs in the spirit of DEI.
Not your
Again,
definition.
I think it depends on the definition. Like, when I see inclusivity, I think right off the bat, like, we've spent a significant amount of time making sure that our special education students are receiving the very best education and a comparable education to our general education students in town. We want our special education students to be fully included in the schools, to be part of the community, to make sure that they're getting the supports and
same
services
classroom?
that they need. When appropriate, yeah. When
If
appropriate
you
and when you
can.
can, absolutely.
Evelyn, you want to read this one?
You had this before. Great show quality on YouTube. Subscribe to the channel, hit the notification bell, and don't forget to smash that like button. And he wants to know what I made.
That's coming up after 7:30.
Right.
After the commercials.
If you don't mind, Evelyn, just
No,
one
you,
more thing.
because you
and
guys are going to leave, so I
Well,
want you to,
yeah, Well, I'd like to
ask as
know,
much.
Jay, how your sister's doing, because I thought she was
There
the
you go.
best person we ever had in our school system. She run the freshman academy like no one could ever run it. I thought she'd be the leader of our high school, but she wasn't. I think she moved on to either New Mexico, I heard, or Mexico, is that true?
Regular Mexico.
Okay.
Yeah, so she's doing great. I saw her over the Christmas break. She is working at an independent school in Monterrey, Mexico.
All right, so
So
do me a
this is
favor,
her, second year there.
don't take your wife out of here, okay?
Okay.
Leave her
She
in
can
the
stay.
little school system. Because, well, I have to listen to my wife on a daily basis. Oh, what-
We all do, Bob.
You going on the show today? Yeah, make sure you call Eric Getcha and talk about the mice infested into our schools. The mice are crazy going through the schools of Lowell. So Eric probably heard that out there right now. I said to my wife, I can't keep bothering that guy. I call him every other day on an issue, But my wife said, you better talk about the mice that are running across the floors of all these schools.
Well, how are we doing in Chelmsford as far as rodents go?
We're doing fine. We don't
I've
really have a rodent issue.
never seen one.
Well, we have one in Lowell.
Well, we did, a number of years ago, because where the dumpsters were with regard to the doors and the kitchen at the high school.
Yeah.
The Crafters Limited had a craft show. There were rats out there.
Really?
They were concerned the rats were gonna come in, into the school
Bring
while
in the
we were
cats.
there, because it was so,
Rats.
oh, yes, rats, rats.
I know what rats are. I just never see rats. I see mice.
I didn't see a rat,
Well,
but
I mean,
somebody
mice-
else did.
Yeah, mice are everywhere.
Yeah.
And particularly like in the season changes, like in the fall.
Oh, yeah.
They're looking for a home, so, mice will wander into any building. But we have a pretty good pest, control program, and you have to anytime you have like food services and schools and things like that.
We have to meet a
So
criteria.
we have a pretty robust program on that, but we certainly don't have any major issues.
Yeah, because I remember signing warrants with Bain Pest Control on
Yeah,
it.
It goes
Yeah.
out to contract. It can change to a couple of different groups, but, yeah, I think we're on top of that.
So Sam, anything else on your mind before you sit down?
Nope.
Bobby, you sit down.
No, I'm good, thank you. It's nice to have him here, that's all.
Thank you.
Oh, are you kicking us out now?
No,
Oh.
no, you got 4 minutes
I can do the announcements.
at 7:30 when they leave.
Okay, if you want to make them late for work when they're going to that.
No,
No,
it's
they
all
told me 7:30.
I'm fine. with
Didn't you
7:30.
say 7:30?
Yeah.
Yeah. So we
Bob
got,
said he could stick around a
No,
little.
I just wanted
by the
to
time we
talk to
finish
Jay a
talking, the
little
4 minutes
bit.
will be up.
Yeah. No, my-
Discussing
You
when
don't
you're
have to
leaving.
leave. I'm the one who has to
Wait,
leave.
hold on. I want to ask you about personal finance.
Sure.
We talk about it every time you come, anytime from school, anybody from school comes. I want personal finance taught in every grade.
Okay.
What are your thoughts? I mean, how did you become a rich man? By luck or personal finance training?
Still trying to become a rich man, hasn't happened.
Matter by
Hasn't happened
definition. Again, we can
No,
define it.
we actually have, starting in the elementary schools, so our actual classwork is more secondary level. It's more middle school and high school. But at the elementary levels, we have different programs in the schools where we partner with local banks and credit unions.
So,
And they will,
What grade does it start, do you think?
I mean,
Grammar school or?
oh, no, it's in the elementary grades. I couldn't tell you if it's first grade or second grade,
What
but,
is elementary,
so elementary for us is K to 4.
K to 4?
And then middle school is 5 to 8, and high school is 9 to 12. So I know that we have them in probably the upper elementary grade levels, maybe third and fourth.
I've seen it in my grandchildren's curriculum,
They
grades
learn how
3
to
and 4.
count money.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, so I know it's
Right.
at that level where it begins.
Yeah.
And then we actually do have, even like through our health and kind of life skills, thinking about things like that at the middle school level, it'll happen. And then at the high school level, we obviously have like financial planning courses and accounting and management and things like that.
That's great.
So we certainly have that up the system, but it's more of an exposure level at the elementary level.
Can I squeeze one more quick one before we leave?
Go right
And
ahead.
it would be about the, how you have the 5th and 6th grades separated from the
Yes.
7th and 8th. How would that work in Lowell, you think?
I don't know that it would. You'd honestly, as a school system, have to step back and take a look completely at the grade reconfiguration and geographically, like where your schools are and who would do what. For us, we happen to have kind of a perfect situation where we had two middle schools that were both 5 to 8, and they were both, within a tenth of a mile from each other. So we were able to basically, because transportation is a huge issue, and I know that would be a huge issue in Lowell, we're able to still transport all of our grades 5 to 8 kids on the same buses. We just had to stagger the start and stop time of the two schools by 10 minutes. So we do a drop at one school, some kids stay on the bus, we go to the second school and drop. So there were no major transportation issues, and because of the close proximity of the schools, it worked for us. When I was in Lowell, I think there were 9 middle schools operating. I don't know spatially how it would work if you ever did something like that. So you would almost have to have someone come in and take a whole look at the design right from the elementary levels. I believe you still have 11 regular elementary schools that are pre-K to 4. You've got the 2 K to 8s, and then you've got the 9 middle schools, and you've got the high school. I don't know, again, it'd be a bigger project for you than it would be for me in Chelmsford. It worked out very well where we were. We've gotten very good feedback from it, too. This is the 3rd year that we've been fully implementing it.
People seem to like it.
Yeah, it's a better, from my opinion, just a better splitting of the ages of the students as well. And for us, it was the first step in really talking about the new school building project, potentially doing that new grade 4, 5, 6 school. 4, 5, 6 is very developmentally appropriate, curriculum-wise, it works very well together, and it kind of got the argument off the table as far as, there's always unease anytime something's going to change or someone's going to have to move, but we were able to kind of get that out of the way and get a few years in before we even get to the discussion around the new school building.
Thanks for the answers, buddy.
Sure.
Appreciate
Yeah,
it.
thanks.
No, anytime.
We'll be back. Okay, so coming up in lovely Lowell at the Middlesex Community College, which is downtown, near the auditorium. And March 25th and 26th, 11 a.m. to 1 p.m., they're going to have 60 different employers down there. So if you're thinking of changing careers, or you got a grandkid grandchild or a child that, I don't know what I want to do, Ma. Send them down there to just talk to all these different companies. 60 companies looking for help down there, a lot of government jobs. It's a great opportunity to just take a look and see what's out there. Eric Gitchie is having a party Thursday, March 27th, 5:30 to 7:30 p.m. at the Mount Pleasant Golf Club. That's up in the Highlands. Re-election campaign and kickoff fundraiser for City Councilor Eric Gitchie. Today is the 20th of March, which means there's a dinner dance we're having today at the Lowell Senior Center. We have those now and then. It's a fun time for everybody. And we're proud to say that we serve lunch 7 days a week. Saturday, Sunday. The only time we don't serve lunch is a holiday. So Sunday, whatever, and that's the calendar of what they're going to have on the menu today. So any day you want to go, great time. Just get in there around 10:30 and get your ticket. Health fair. Free health fair out at the Tewksbury Senior Center, April 9th from 1 p.m. to 4 p.m. For more information, you want to call Susan Timmons, and her phone number is in the bottom of the screen here. Danielle McFadden. She's having a campaign party Thursday, April 3rd, 5 to 8 p.m. at the Mount Pleasant Golf Club, 141 Staple Street in lovely Lowell, Massachusetts. Spring volunteer fair at St. Anne's Church, downtown Lowell, 8 Kirk Street. And if you want to be a volunteer, they're going to have a lot of volunteer opportunities that, talked about that day. So consider going down to St. Anne's Church on Saturday, April 5th from 9 to noon. This is always a tasty event. Yesterday I went to the Wilmington-Tewksbury Chamber of Commerce annual meeting. Had a great time. Mark Gratman is the chief cook and bottle washer of the organization, and there was probably like 80 people at the event, so well attended. So this Taste of the Town, many of the restaurants participate here, and it's coming up on April 8th, 5 to 8 p.m. at the Holiday Garden Inn in Tewksbury. So if you're hungry that day, mosey on in and have a good time. Moving right along here, Evelyn sent me this. It's a fundraiser. Ev, do you know anything about this?
No, I just know that it was on Facebook, and it is,
Well, it's a fundraiser. It is going to be E-Waste and Junk Recycle Day, Saturday, May 3rd.
I can give you a little information on this
Go
if
ahead,
you want,
Jim,
John.
yeah.
So this is a long-time fundraiser that two of our PTOs do in Chelmsford together. So this is Center Elementary School and McCarthy Middle School. So this is actually conducted at our central administration, the old police station in Chelmsford where our CPS admin offices are. People, if you have any kind of electronics, I've seen TVs, computers, any of those kind of things that you want to get rid of, bulky items, you can come by for a small fee, drop it off, and then it gets carted out at the end of the day. But it's a great fundraiser for those two school PTOs. They do one in the fall, one in the spring, very well subscribed. People can drop off all kinds of, disposables that you can't just leave on a curbside normally, and it does benefit the school PTO. So it is a long-standing great fundraiser for town.
So if you have a lot of monitors, put them all in your car. It's only $60 for the whole car load. And you got a truck or a van, $85 for a load of electronics you want to get rid of. Thanks, Jay. Adrian Kimborowitz Memorial Fundraiser is going to be Saturday, May 3rd, 6 to 11 p.m. at the Bunting Club, 449 Boylston Street in lovely Lowell, Massachusetts. And something to look forward to. Good kiddo. Sorry, Adrian. Rest in peace. The Megan House helps a lot of gals who are in trouble. And they have a fundraiser. It's going to be a golf tournament, and it's coming up in June. And there are a lot of opportunities there to advertise your company. So you can, if you're interested, be in touch with the Megan House, and they'd be happy for your support. And their phone number and stuff is right here. So just take your phone out of your pocket, go over to the screen, take a picture of this. If you want to help out the Megan House, great organization. That's the last one, Ev. Back over to you. I got to change cameras shortly, but that's the camera we're going to use for now.
Well, welcome back to the discussion part versus the commercial part of the program. As you can see, we have two empty chairs. Sam Chase and Bob Hoey had previous engagements for this morning, so they have to leave early in order to get there. But we have Dr. Lang, Dr. Jay Lang. I call you Jay
You
versus
just
Dr.
call me
Lang.
Jay. That's fine.
Call me Jay. As our guest this morning. So now it's just you and me, but there's a whole lot of interesting stuff that's out there. One of the things that always comes up during the wintertime,
Yeah.
obvious question, we ask this probably every time you show up, just so that people know.
Sure.
If there's going to be a snow day, how do you determine that? I'll leave it open-ended. I mean, I'm not going to.
Okay, there's a lot that goes into this, and I know we talk about this, and the kids are just looking for the snow day. They want the day off, or they want the delay. It's quite a process. It actually starts the day before. You'll start to hear about a storm coming, but probably the afternoon before, we start to get weather alerts, weather updates from local groups to kind of tell us exactly how Chelmsford, in our case, might be impacted. A lot of it's just depending on the timing of the storm. So if we know a storm is actually, the easier ones for us is a storm that's going to come in overnight, it's going to end in the night. We can get out early in the morning and scrape and clear and get the schools ready for the regular opening. That works. This year, we actually had a couple of storms that started during the night, but were all-day storms. So even when you woke up in the morning, the snow was still happening. There was, rain, sleet. Those are the very tough storms to call. We work very closely with DPW, who in Chelmsford is responsible for doing all the plowing of the streets and the roads and sidewalks. Our school custodians are the ones that have to come in and clear off the walkways and paths to and in and out of school. But between myself, Brian Curley, who's our director of facilities in the schools, I talk to him. He's on site during the snowstorms. Christine Clancy, who's the DPW director, check in with her to see how her staff are doing, coping with the storms. We have to make a decision by about 5 o'clock in the morning, whether we're going to delay an opening or cancel school for the day. And then we have a whole process we put in place to obviously notify local media outlets. We send Connect Ed messages home, so people actually get an email and a phone call saying school's either delayed or canceled. But it's quite an ordeal to think about. We never want to put kids or staff, and you have to think about the staff are also traveling not just from Chelmsford, but they're traveling from a greater distance sometimes to come to the schools. So it's important to know exactly what's happening on the ground in Chelmsford. But if you have staff traveling anywhere from, say, a 20 to 30-minute radius of town, you also have to be thinking about what's happening in the greater Chelmsford area or the greater Merrimack Valley area. But we have to make those decisions and then ultimately live with whatever we make, because if we bring the kids into school, they're there for the day. We don't, I've never considered doing like an early day dismissal. That is very difficult to manage. It's very difficult on working families. So sometimes that leads us to have to be more cautious and actually say close school for a day, because if you've got a storm that's going to develop and come in around noontime through dismissal hours, I can't afford to have the kids still be at school and the staff not be able to get home at the end of the day safely. So a lot goes into it. It's kind of being an umpire in a baseball game. Half the people are happy with you, half the people are angry with you. But after doing it for as long as I have, you just make the best decision you can based on the data you have at the time, and you live with it.
Most of the criticism I have is that they get the phone call at 5:30 or 6 o'clock in the morning, and sometimes the kids are already up because you've got high school. So
That's a no-win, and
Yeah.
again, it's some people don't want to get called too early. Like I hear from the elementary parents, because the elementary kids don't go until 9. Why are you calling us at 5:15 or 5:30 in the morning? Because we can't stagger phone calls to go out to the district. So again, staff are coming in from great distances. Our kids at the high school, actually, class starts at 7:19. But our buses start to roll anywhere between 6:30 and 6:45. So we've got to give the high school staff and students as much time as we possibly can, so that the teachers don't start to come and the kids aren't waiting out at a bus stop. So we usually make the decision by 5. We queue up the calls to go out between 5 and 5:30. And if you get the call that there's going to be no school, you can go back to bed. But I can't delay the call just because the high school, the elementaries go in late. Everyone's got to hear at the same time.
I remember, being on the school committee, there was a phone system that if you had a child at the elementary school, you got a call. If you had a child at the middle school, you had a call. If you had a child at the high school, you had a call at the time. I didn't have any kids, but I was getting 3 phone calls. So do you have a single call, or do you have a call based upon where the parent has the students?
No, so when I initiate the phone call district-wide. So when I go and do the poll and I figure out who I want to go send a message to, I can pick an individual school or even a grade level, I guess down to the classroom level if I really wanted to. But when I send a message out, it just goes broadly to everyone in the district, K-12
Regardless
at the same
of
time,
level.
regardless. If I happen to be, say, a principal at one school, then they're only going to have access to send a message to their individual school. The instance that comes up that you mentioned as far as getting, say, 3 phone calls, that happens more often if you end up actually having, say, 3 kids in 3 different schools, because you could have an elementary, middle, and a high school kid all at the same time. And let's say you were out, all 3 of them were out sick or whatnot for a day. Each individual school is going to send you an attendance message just alerting you that your child wasn't in school today. So you might get a message from, Center Elementary, McCarthy Middle, and the high school if you had 3 different kids that happened to be out at the same time. But no, when I send a message out, it does go to the whole district.
Jay, before we do this text, when do you tell Jan? See, I get all my school stuff off of channel 4, 5, 7, 11. When do you notify the TV stations that your school department's closed?
So at that same time, so when we make the call at 5,
Yep.
there's like a little phone tree we go down, but they've actually automated it now, 4, 5, and 7, so we actually call in with a code and put our code up, so then it just starts to appear in the message, but between 5 and 5:30.
Okay,
In the
thank
morning.
you. So,
Sure.
looking at the text, are teachers required to teach DEI
I thought we had this question before.
ideology to students?
Yeah, this one may have come up previously. No, we don't actually, teach DEI, or I heard the comment earlier, like critical race theory, things like that in the schools. We obviously are a school system that is supportive of all the kids that come to school each day. We want everyone to feel that they're part of the community. But there is no specific curriculum around that.
I think sometimes the way, it doesn't mean that it's Chelmsford when I make this comment, by the way. There are ways around actually having a curriculum of it. You have it blended into other parts of the curriculum. It could be a worksheet, it could be a reading assignment, it could be a research paper, it could be any number of things that would focus on it, but it's not being taught directly. It's an indirect result of what is actually in the curriculum. And it depends on the definition. So when you get into the diversity, it's obvious that it is in a classroom. You may have different cultures. You may have different educational challenges when you talk about equity. You want everybody to be equal with certain things, but everybody isn't equal because of their abilities to learn or financial or economic situations. And some of those things, again, it depends on how you want to approach that. I know with the inclusivity part, that's always been there. You want to be inclusive of having as many students as possible with their peer groups rather than have them separate. It's unfortunate that because of the way the political arena has done this and how they have redefined those terms, it has put people more on the defensive of what they're trying to achieve. That's why the definition of terms is very, very important. And the application. It's not a new, what we have done in Chelmsford is not new. What the political arena is trying to do is, which is unfortunate. You were going to say something.
No, I was just going to say, I don't have any idea, like, whose questions could be, what their definition is or whatnot. In Chelmsford, we're not changing anything that we currently do or have done for years. I think we're a very accepting, welcoming, supportive school system for all of our students that come to us, for anyone who lives in Chelmsford. Whether, again, we are a diversifying community. Even in the last 10 years since I've been in Chelmsford, we've seen the number of students who, let's say, are receiving some type of financial support. Our financially vulnerable students have increased significantly. The number of L students in the district have increased significantly. Our special education population, specifically,
We're gonna talk about, what do we got here, Ev?
So I was being creative. It's a banana almond cheesecake.
Okay, thank you. Sorry, Jay.
that's okay. I forget exactly where it's at, but like our special education population has expanded as well. And we're always going to do the very best we can to support every single student who comes to our district, whether it's services they need to be able to be competing in a grade level with their peers. That's going to be our aim. As a district, we've spent a significant amount of time kind of pre-COVID, which I think benefited us well, and then obviously we continue post-COVID around social emotional learning, making sure students feel, again, welcomed in schools. They know how to communicate, collaborate with each other. That's not going to change. So again, I'm not nationally worried about what's happening as it's going to impact our town and district. We're going to keep plugging along and doing what we know we have been doing well, supporting our students, staff, and families, and focusing on what we can control in Chelmsford.
So just to take a few minutes, in the first hour, we briefly talked about the Department of Education being dissolved. Excuse me. And one of the things that, everybody is trying to say is the financial aspect of it, but they're trying to take the financial aspect of it and put it in other departments to get rid of the bureaucracy. But has any money in the Chelmsford School Department budget, has any of those line items been currently directly impacted by saying, you're not getting this money from the Department of Education?
No, I mean, currently, no, we have our allocations for the current year. Obviously, it's something we're just looking to watch. And again, as I talk to people about this, things are changing every single day. We have to wait and see what actually ends up happening. We do receive a good amount of money from federal grants. Primarily, our big ones are the IDEA Special Education Grant. Title I is another big one for us. That's a little under $500,000, but right alone, those are two grants when together are a little bit over $2 million a year that we receive in extra grants that come from the federal government and pass through to the state government, and then obviously come to us. But I have no idea, and I don't think anyone truly knows what the change would be if, the U.S. Department of Education went away, if all the different things that they were doing, they have to get assumed by someone. So are they just going to be pushed to other departments? Is the funding going to still flow, but it's going to flow through a different organization or entity to get to the State Department of Education to get to us? I think everyone is just sitting back waiting to see, because there are just so many things that we don't have certainty around. What we're doing internally is we know what we have for funding. We know when we get it. We're monitoring to make sure it's still coming in, but the funding that we have for the current year still is. And we're obviously keeping an eye on next year, but we're not going to react until we actually see what's going to happen.
Jay, on electronics, I know that the schools are trying to push away the cell phone, shut your cell phone off in school.
Yeah.
Yet, every teacher I know is happy to pull the cell phone out of their pocket and look something up.
Mm-hmm.
So is there any mindset amongst your colleagues of superintendents to incorporate cell phones into our teaching? Since almost every kid who has one in their pocket, has any thought been to utilize cell phones?
Yeah, again, it's an interesting issue. Cell phones aren't necessarily bad, and I think it's like there's a right time and a right place for them. We typically, we don't have issues with cell phones at the elementary school. The kids are too young. The kids start to get their cell phones when they go into middle school and then obviously the high school. And the policy in the district and the practice is pretty much put your cell phones away while you're in the classroom and instruction is taking place. There are certainly classrooms where the teacher might do an exercise with kids, and if they have a cell phone or if they don't have a cell phone but they need some type of a tech device, they'd have a tech device available to them to use, but you're using it along with the teacher for a particular purpose, that's fine. We don't want to have a situation where the teacher's trying to teach and the kid's on Facebook.
It's a distraction,
in the classroom as a distraction. So I think that's what we need to really kind of get at. There is, all kinds of different legislation being filed and pending around, cell phone bans, or do we do cell phone bans just during instructional time? Again, that's another one we're going to kind of step back and actually see what happens, because there are so many different angles people are pushing at it. I don't want to keep jumping around and reacting, and what we have in place right now is working.
But what I will say to those people who want to ban cell phones is, why didn't you leave your cell phone in the glove compartment of your car? Why is it in your pocket? Since you want to ban everybody else from having a cell phone. Mm-hmm. And I just think it's a useful tool that, if it's used properly, can save you money and can give you some great guidance. Thanks, Jay.
Yeah.
Does Chelmsford, I'll give you a couple of minutes with this, and then I have, I want to talk about
By
the
the way,
building
that was
project.
delicious. Thank you.
With regard to cell phones, have you created a policy in the Chelmsford Public Schools so that students don't have them in class? They put them in a box when they enter the classroom?
Yeah, so it's a little different, school by school. Again, elementary, we don't have an issue. At the middle school level, it's keep it in your bag, keep it in your locker, really should not be out. At the high school level, again, the same thing. The kids are a little bit older. Most kids do have the cell phone at that point. During instructional time, keep it out. Keep it in your bag. Have it be muted. Have it be shut off. You're not supposed to be interacting on the phone during class, unless, again, it was something teacher directed or something the teacher said to do. So that's what we kind of have as our practice. We do have information in our student handbooks around that. We are going to have to kind of look longer term to see, is that viable or not. Some individual teachers will have it almost kind of like the shoe rack on the door when they walk in the classroom. Like, if you know you're going to be a kid that's tempted to get on their phone, shut it off and put it in the rack if you want, and then when you leave in the class, pick up your phone. But honestly, I have not heard of it being too big of an issue. The practices we have in place seem to be working, so we're going to just sit back and wait and see what actually might happen
So
statewide.
pointedly, every child in high school has to take their cell phone, put it in the rack, or that's optional?
No, I'm saying different teachers
In Chelmsford.
do it differently, just in Chelmsford. But, sometimes a kid could be, they just can't control themselves, so if they think it's better, put it in the rack. Most teachers will just say, keep it in your bag, keep it away, I just don't want to see it, and that's fine. But again, some kids, if you're going to be tempted, might just put it in the
So
rack.
it's up to
that
the
they're not-
individual teacher of that classroom,
Yeah.
how they police the cell phones in the
And it
classroom.
sounds like whatever it is, it's working.
Yeah, we're not having major issues with it.
Good, thank you.
So we have about 3 minutes. What is the status of the current building project? Because we're going to build a new Parker School, just so that anybody that's in Chelmsford listening, they'll know what's going on.
Yeah, no, this is actually this is a huge topic. We could do a whole show on this sometime, Evelyn. It's
Well, let's plan on doing
we could.
that in a few weeks, maybe.
A couple of big things happening. So we're actually in the process right now of hiring or contracting with an individual firm to be our owner's project manager, someone who's going to be the school departments and towns liaison through this whole project. So we actually issued a request for services, an RFS, about a month or so ago. We got 12 responses, which is excellent. 12 quality firms submitted proposals. We ultimately had a group that reviewed the proposals and narrowed it down to 4. So 4 firms were shortlisted, and we had the interviews yesterday. It's timely that you asked that question. So we interviewed the 4 firms yesterday, and now we're going to be shifting into a process today and tomorrow where we're doing all of our reference checks on those firms. And then we'll reconvene next week and ultimately select the group that we'll recommend to the larger school building committee. When that recommendation is accepted, that'll be submitted to the Mass School Building Authority by the middle of April. And then we're on the May 12th school MSBA board meeting to have that OPM be approved. So once the OPM is approved on May 12th, we'll then issue a request for services for a designer. So we then need to hire the designer, the architectural firm who will work with us on this whole project. So that'll take place between May and probably August. Our goal is to have the designer also on board by the end of the summer so that we can start September right out of the gate doing our community sessions. We need to do our educational plan around what the new school would look like, what we want to see in the new building. We need to work with staff, students, the public to talk about their kind of wishes and desires for the space. So that'll all take place over the next school year. And we ultimately at that point have to whittle down one of 3 options. So the first option is, do we do just a 1-for-1 replacement of Parker Middle School, which is grade 5 and 6 only? Do we expand and do option B, which would be to do a 3-grade level school, a 4, 5, and 6? That would take the 4th grade out of the elementary schools to give us a little bit of help enrollment-wise and space-wise at the elementary level. All new grade 4, 5, and 6 kids in town get a brand-new school, which would be great for them. The third option we need to vet would be a new kind of mega middle school, a new grade 5, 6, 7, 8 middle school. That would be a very large school that would rejoin Parker and McCarthy. Parker would come offline as a facility at the end of the project, and then McCarthy could potentially be used as a 5th elementary school. So there'd have to be a rezoning and redistricting at that point. But options B and C, the 4, 5, 6, or the 5 to 8, not only give all the kids who are going to attend that school in town a brand new facility, but also helps us with the elementary class size and enrollment issues that we're having over the next 10 to 15 years. So those two projects do both, new school and help with overcrowding and enrollment issues. The first option would just provide a new school for grades 5 and 6. So
Okay.
all next school year, we're going to be kind of looking at those options.
I hope the windows, I'll talk about the schools in just a second. Tomorrow City Life, we're going to have Cliff Krieger, Eileen Del Rossi. Cliff went and he videoed Elizabeth Warren's visit yesterday to Lowell. So I'm looking forward to tomorrow morning. I hope the schools, the windows open. Direct sunlight has to get into classrooms. And Lowell has built a sick building at the new high school that we're building, spending $1 bazillion on. The windows don't open. They're depending on the air handling systems to take all the germs out of and Lowell doesn't very often forgets what maintenance is. So I just hope that the windows in this yet to be built schools in Chelmsford, at least they open. So they
Right,
get
I think
direct
that's
sunlight.
something to consider. We're going to go
I don't know.
off of LTC very shortly. Everybody have a great day. Stay safe. Watch your weather because it's New England. Can change. Might snow tomorrow. Take care.
Thank you for having me.
Thanks, Jay.
Thanks very much, Jay.